No, this one's mine. Yours is dead.
R.I.P.
Thought I had a spare battery.
Doesn't fit your camera.
Squelching noise is so gross.
Hi guys, it's Rebecca and welcome to my channel. And just a bit of a disclaimer, as you can see from the title of this video, I'm going to be talking today about things that I learned while working in retail. I only worked in retail for about 6-7 months, and none of the things that I talk about in this video really happened to me as such, but I have a few friends and that who work in retail still, and these are some of the things that have happened to them on occasion, so I just feel that I would talk about them today and kind of just get it off my chest, have a little bit of a rant as such. So here they are, things I learned while working in retail. The first one I want to talk about is kind of more of a positive. Working in retail is very good for fitness. You get your steps. I used to wear, well I still do, I used to wear a Fitbit Charge whenever I worked in retail, and you get your steps. You get your 10,000 steps between just walking around the floor, making sure all the customers are okay, or walking between the floor and the storeroom, even going up the stairs in the storeroom because our warehouse kind of had a mezzanine level. You get your exercise. So that's one benefit. You're not just sitting behind a desk all day in front of a computer, you're actively walking about, getting your heart rate going, especially during stressful times like Christmas or Black Friday or anything like that. I think it was my manager actually, he coined the phrase ski walk in terms of what I did walking around the shop floor, because I walked very fast and very quick, but for some reason when I walked very quick my head went forward like this, so it looked as if I was skiing down a slope because my head was going forward but my legs were still like this, because I don't handle stress very well. It's probably why I don't work in retail anymore. It's just too stressful for me, and not funny for me, but funny for anybody else watching me walk around like a lunatic on the shop floor. The rest of them are kind of negatives. I've kind of made a little list of things that I want to discuss. The first thing is, everything in retail is unacceptable. I'm dealing with a customer who wants to return something and they don't have a receipt. That's unacceptable. There's no customer toilets. That's unacceptable. We haven't got stock of a certain item and they want it today. They don't want to order it and get it next week. They want it today. It's unacceptable. Those are just kind of some situations that I could think about, but allow me to debunk some of them. If you don't have a receipt, I don't have any proof that you actually bought this item in this shop, or in fact actually own it. So I can't return it without a receipt. In the shop that I worked in, if you could remember around kind of the period of time in which you bought it, or it was an item over a certain amount of money, the shop would take your postcode and store it in the computer system just in case stuff like this happened. Say like a broken TV or a washing machine, something you can't physically bring back into the shop. So if you could give us those details, we could find your proof of purchase and give you your refund or your exchange or whatever you wanted. But if you come in with, like, say you bought a pair of headphones, they weren't opened or anything like that because we can't take back used headphones for hygiene purposes. If you wanted to return them but you don't have a receipt and you can't remember when it was bought, there's very little that we can actually do for you. And that may seem unacceptable to you because you obviously want your money back, but our hands are tied in that situation where we have no proof that you actually bought this and when you bought it, so we don't have any details in which to actually process the refund. Without your receipt, we don't even know how much the headphones even were. You may think it's unacceptable, but it's the rules. Customer toilets, on the other hand, are a different scenario. Some buildings are literally just not equipped for having that kind of facility. In the shop I worked in allowed young children, pregnant ladies and elderly to use the staff toilets. The children just had to be escorted to the toilets by a parent. That was fine, but if you're an adult and don't know to go to the toilet before you leave somewhere, there's not much I can do about it. And the whole thing about stock is just another scenario altogether. Shops like that only have a certain amount of space to hold things, and you can't expect to show up to a place and just expect us to have an endless supply of stuff. That's not how it works, but it's unacceptable. The second thing that's a negative that I learned while working in retail is it doesn't matter what I say, I'm a liar. I don't mean it in such a harsh term as that, but it just seems to be that every single time you deal with a customer who's being a bit unreasonable, being very demanding, it doesn't matter that what you're telling them is the complete and utter truth, they still want to speak to the manager. Only for the manager to tell them the exact same thing that I just spent 15 minutes of my own time telling them myself. In the odd case, the manager does have a bit more power to be able to help this person out a lot more than I will. That doesn't help me because I've just spent, as I said, the last 15 minutes telling them that there's nothing I can do and that's just the way it is, only for the manager to come over and completely override everything I just said, which then makes me look like the bad person because there was something I could do, I just didn't tell them. It also kind of makes you feel bad whenever the manager comes over to the customer and tells them the exact same thing that you just told them, and only then do they believe that that's the case. Like, why is my word not enough to satisfy you? But that might be asking too much of people sometimes. The third thing that I learned while working in retail is Christmas brings out the very worst in people. And by people, I don't just mean customers, it brings out the worst in staff as well, because there's an awful lot of stress involved on both parties. On the customer side, it's about making sure you have everything on your list, all sitting there before Christmas and everything's done and dusted. But if you choose to leave everything to the last minute and find that you can't get some of the stuff, that's not our problem. There are some people who were getting stuff for Christmas in the month of November, or even starting as early as the end, like in October. That's preparedness. That's very good. But if you come to us a week before Christmas and expect something to be in stock or get something delivered to your house before Christmas time, chances are that's not going to happen, and that doesn't make it our fault. But then again, the customer's always right. It's stressful on the other hand as well for the staff, because I don't know if this is the case for any other retail workers out there, but in the shop I worked in, you had certain targets to meet every month. Christmas time is probably one of the hardest times for you to get those targets because people want to spend a certain amount of money and that's all they want to spend. It adds on the stress because you know that you have a certain amount of things to sell in a day, and if you don't, the managers are going to be stricter and harder on you, and throw that on top of the fact that you're dealing with customers constantly. The manager had a list of all the people who were waiting to be seen, so literally once you were finished with the customer you were currently on, you went to the manager and went straight to the next one. There was no break in between. So to the point where one time I recall finishing with a customer and just hanging back for about 5 minutes just to get a breather. It's a very stressful, unpleasant environment, and it doesn't bring out the best in anybody. It doesn't help that you give up spending time with your family around the holidays just to come in and work in this stressful environment and potentially have to deal with some very unreasonable, nasty people. I have a friend who's worked in retail for the last 8 years. That's 8 Boxing Days of her entire life that she's given up to work in retail, to stand behind a desk and have people shout abuse at her about how everything's her fault, she's ruined Christmas, and it's just not a nice thing to have to deal with. No matter who you are, just because you work in retail doesn't mean that you should have to feel like a piece of dirt under someone's shoe just because you're enforcing the rules set down by the company that you work for, but that's not what the customer wants to hear. No wonder I don't work in retail anymore. That was a few of the things that I learned while working in retail, and I'm just so very glad that I don't actually work in retail anymore because it turned out to be too stressful for me. I don't handle stress very well, and I'm not pushy enough of a person to get what I want from the customer so I can meet all of my targets. So I'm just kind of glad to say that I've worked in retail and have the experience, but that's nah. Until next time guys, this is the second video of my attempt to do weekly uploads, so it's going well so far, and if you like what you see, be sure to hit the subscribe button wherever it is in this general area now, and even hit the little bell if you want to so you get notified every single time I make a new video. All of my socials are down below in the description box, and until next time guys, be nice to each other and I'll see you next time. Bye!